Good afternoon, Maverick traders. Joe with you here. Let's do a currency recap for Thursday, the 6th of February. You guys know how this works, so take responsibility for it. I want to break down some of the news that we saw. Let's take a look at some stuff technically when it comes to markets. And hey, I've got a trade, so let's share it.
Disclaimer. This video was created for professional Forex and crypto traders. Maverick Currencies is a proprietary trading firm that employs professional traders around the world. Our traders trade firm capital and keep 70 to 80% of profits they generate. All trades and analysis in this video are for professional traders only. If you are interested in becoming a professional Forex and currency trader for Maverick, click the apply button in the video description. Let's break down what happened today.
Moving into the market analysis, you'll see that, the U.S. markets pretty much stayed flat, but we did get a little move in some of the currencies. So U.S. dollar stays flat as the yen continued higher. I imagine the dollar is going to stay clear of it based on some of the tariffs going on, some of the worries and instability in that specific currency. The Bank of England cuts rates as expected down to 4.5%, but they did have some dovish comments thinking that, hey, they might kind of sit back for a little bit, but the euro itself, the pound itself did slide subsequently. So let's take a look at how we did finish. The yen had a pretty good move up, 0.85%, dollar flat. Franc slipped a little bit, euro and the pound both down. Pound being down that 0.5% because of the Bank of England's bank rate change and some of its comments moving forward. The CAD flat, Aussie flat, and the New Zealand dollar slipped a little bit. Now overall, folks, the S&P is actually up at a resistance area. It gapped down the last couple of days. Well, it gapped down a few days ago and it's climbed itself back up to a resistance level. We'll take a look at the chart here, but it did close positive 0.36%. World index as well. Crypto dropped, gold down just slightly, and oil slid a little bit more, 0.91%, and some instability in oil. We'll see where that goes in the next little bit. Cryptos took a little bit of a break. Everything took a break, or everything moved lower, except I should say for Bitcoin itself, but down 3.29. You see it here, 3.5%, 2.5% almost across the board when it comes to the cryptos. They're still pretty strong overall. They're kind of hanging out pretty much flat. So what do I got, folks? We haven't really changed much. It's this move to the downside that has come back up. We've seen it a few times. I've got above the 20 and 50 MA, the slope of the 2050s. They're both sloping higher and they're about to cross, so I just kept it a little bit more cautious. Now, I did give it a +1, but the overall pattern is a little bit more bearish than that, or at least what I'm seeing. So what we're seeing is some of these bigger moves that come with a lot of volatility, right? So let's get to this next one here. So what I'm seeing here, you got a gap down, and then it just basically climbs its way back up, and then we get another gap down, and so far, folks, it is just climbing its way back up. Now, we do have an overall pattern that is bearish, and I've been talking a lot with my equity traders, and I saying, hey, keep an eye on this area, right? So we'll see. We did close on the highs of the day, so we'll see if that can continue. But we're starting to get a little bit more of a pattern here that's a little bit more bearish. Now, it does look a lot like the previous flag pattern that we saw that did actually break up and move higher. So we'll see if this candle can continue to move higher. Now, on the equity side, we are in the midst of earnings season. We do have some good numbers. We have some bad numbers. Stocks are going up and down, but overall, you guys can see the motion of the ocean over the last week has been to the upside. Not a lot of volume, so it's not like it's just this huge surge to the upside. It's just this nice, slow, steady grind back up to previous levels. I'm not sure where we're going to go, which is why I've kept it at that kind of 0 to +1 outlook. Taking a look at some of the economic reports and some of the numbers that we've seen, well, they don't really give us much to go on. We did have an ISM manufacturing PMI that was strong, and we did have the U.S. JOLTS job openings slightly lower. Now, I thought was a surprise and relevant, I'm still talking about the U.S. here, folks, is the ADP non-farm employment range was pretty high, a pretty good surge to the upside. Now, it was followed up by today's unemployment claims, which did slightly increase. So we got this kind of push-pull going on in the U.S., showing a little bit more of we're kind of at this median level, which could give the Fed room to just kind of sit back and watch. So I think that's why we're seeing a little bit of a steady decline in the US dollar as of late. We'll see where that goes. in the next little bit. Now, the big one today, obviously, was the Bank of England. Rate change was exactly as expected, 4.5%. They kept it there. But we'll see what's going to go on, as they came out and said that they're a little bit more dovish, saying that, hey, maybe we don't have to be as aggressive when it comes to rate cuts. But still, with the cut itself, the pound kind of just moved a little bit lower. We'll see where that goes over the next little bit. What's coming up? Well, we've got the Canadian unemployment change and rate. We also have the U.S. dollar non-farm payroll change and the unemployment rate as well. So we'll see what happens with both of these tomorrow. Past that, folks, not a lot of movement in either of them compared to the yen or the pound. Let's get down into our currency analysis and see what is up. First off, we always start with the yen there. So I've got a yen. Take a look at this. I'm just going to take a look pretty much on, well, let's get back to it here. Sorry. I want to get to the velocity score, right? So this is our 4-hour velocity score. And take a look at it. I mean, just a little bit of a pullback. Nice surge to the upside. It's been continuing for the last few days. SARS flip, nice push on the RSI. It's looking great. I've got it obviously at a +3. And it just seems like it wants to be the flight to safety, right? We'll see what happens with the dollar over the next little bit. But the yen looks super strong. So something to look at. The dollar itself, here we go, kind of the exact opposite. Now, it's still strong overall on the daily, but this velocity, look at this, a big surge to the upside, a little bit of worries, a lot of worries when it comes to some of these tariffs and policies moving forward. We did get a slight flip on the SAR here, so I'm going to just give it a little bit of a, hey, it stopped, but the RSI is low, and I can't really give it anything more than a -2, folks, at least velocity-wise, as this is actually flipped. Now, I'm going to keep an eye on things when it comes to the support level it's trying to build here. We'll see if we get any sort of a bounce, but if not, we could see a little bit of weakness if we continue in this direction. Let's get to the franc. The franc also showed some weakness. This one I actually have as a -3. Obviously, SARS flipped. The moving average is slightly moving lower, but that RSI pushed to the downside, and the subsequent move to price action as it is breaking the support level. So I think the franc might be something to pair with something stronger in the shorter term. In fact, I've got a trade with this involved. So definitely weakness on the franc. I gave it a -3. Euro sliding lower. I think it's just kind of there. The pound and the euro to me are attached quite a bit. I don't know. That's probably not true, folks, but I just see them move the same way a lot. Now, the euro has this very strong slide. The RSI is showing it. The moving average is showing it. The SARS is showing it. We're already below levels that I had looked at previously, so it's definitely at a -3. I'll just go ahead and just add to it the pound. The pound today, with that news, it did flip. It broke a pretty good support level. Now, folks, I actually had the euro and the pound as bullish trades against the Canadian dollar, and I actually did pretty good on both of those trades last week or two. However, it changed quite a bit. The CAD started to stabilize, and we're seeing a little bit more weakness in the euro and the pound. So it did slip a little bit lower, move to the downside here on the RSI. This is 100% volatility, right? So moving average down, SARS down. I had to give it a -3. Moving on to the CAD. The CAD showing some stability, an oversold bounce, I should call it, or maybe just a reactionary bounce. This thing's going to play the tariff game with the U.S. for a while, back and forth. But I did like how it pulled back to kind of this area of stability, and it's kind of moving sideways. So I actually gave it a 0. In fact, I gave it a little bit more than a 0. I gave it a +1. Why I like it? Well, it's moved the average up, right? The SARS have flipped, but we got a little bit of a stable RSI here above 50. So more of a consolidation, but I'm going to give it glass half full because it's kind of at or above that level that I just drew there. So a +1 on the CAD. Moving over to the Aussie. I like the Aussie. It's emerging here. One of my favorite patterns. You guys know this. I like to see consolidation. I'll put it a little bit higher here. An ascending triangle pattern. A little bit of a consolidation there. RSI, I'd like to see a little bit more strength there, but a good flip in the SAR and the start of a moving average that shows some strength. So the Aussie is something that I can see kind of maybe emerging. It was flat today, but that is something I'm looking at in the shorter term. In fact, I'll go ahead and say it, folks. We'll take a look at here. It's the Aussie franc pairing that I want to see over the next few days. The Kiwi itself, not as strong as the Aussie. Kind of more of a flat trade. I got the Aussie at a +2, but the Kiwi, I'm going to keep it a +1. Consolidation here on the RSI, consolidation here on the moving average. I do like the SAR flip, and I do kind of like maybe the emergence of a symmetrical triangle pattern. So I'm going to go, you could give it a 0, totally fine. I just gave it a +1, just kind of based on the pattern that I see in the shorter term. Let's get into our cryptocurrencies, folks. Bitcoin, the least hurt today, right? But still down, still moving to the downside. Overall, its momentum is flat. So I just gave Bitcoin just a -1. I flipped the SAR here, slight move to the downside here on the moving average. And an RSI that's actually below the 50. I'll give it a -1. Bitcoin Cash, it's the same idea. I'm just going to give it a -1 as well. Slight slope here, more of a consolidation on a low point. You take a look at these things on the daily chart, folks. The way that they fall and they move, they're very difficult to gauge. But as far as momentum goes, it's slightly lower. Let's take a look at Ethereum. Ethereum I gave pretty much flat. I do like it's consolidating kind of above this low point. We got a SAR that did flip just recently, but I'm going to give it a 0 to +1. Litecoin, pretty much the exact same thing as Ethereum, right? Just consolidation. We did get a flip on the SAR there, but it's more of a kind of a 0 here. So that's kind of where I'm sitting on the cryptos. So here's our outlook on the velocity score. Lots of move, a lot of it based on, earnings, or I shouldn't say earnings, announcements. The pound slid a little bit. The US dollar having a pullback there. I do like how the yen just continues to emerge and move higher. I want it to pair it with something, but I think the yen's a little bit too strong. So what am I looking at as far as maybe a possible currency trade? Well, it's going to be the Aussie franc. So let's just jump straight into it. Now, obviously, folks, you can see what I like the most about it is, one of my favorite patterns, the emerging ascending triangle, right? So it seems to be working its way up here. We'll see where this goes. It's ascending here. Getting into it over the next little bit, I'm totally fine with that. If you guys want to scale in, that's fine. I'll probably just take a look at it in the morning and see if it can, what it does, if it pulls back or if it can move higher. My first target's obviously going to be up in this area. So I'm not looking for too much. I just want to see a little bit of a surge to the upside and see if it can continue. But I just love that RSI action. So if everything just kind of opens flat, I might have the opportunity to maybe get into that. But that's kind of the only thing that's on my watch list, at least for tomorrow. So in conclusion, guys, I'm just seeing the yen. It's just showing some strength. And I wonder if it's just kind of a risk on, or excuse me, a risk off, moving out of some of these riskier currencies, even though I just like how the Aussie's working right now. And since the U.S. is all sorts of, all over the place when it comes to tariffs and worries, it's just all going into the yen. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. So expect U.S. dollar to be reactionary shorter term. I truly think announcements, tariff changes, I think it might be all over the place. Worries about what the Fed's going to do, or once again, what any sort of policy change to it. So the U.S. could be a little bit unstable, which is fine. We got some weakness in the franc. We got the CAD. We can play back and forth. The yen's nice and steady, and then like I see the Aussie there. So we've got plenty of other currencies to trade with outside of that. Play relative strength and weakness as always, folks. Proper position sizing, and hey, if you can't find a trade you like, you don't have to trade. All right, thanks for joining me. Talk to you next time. Bye, everybody.